Not every day looks the same with managing a beef cattle herd. Seasonal changes, well, those make a big difference, and they're not exactly the same from year to year. As you can see, I've got green grass behind me, and it's nice and sunny out here in this pasture today. So we're going to be talking about seasonal changes with our beef cattle herd, so stay tuned. That's what our topic today is going to be. Well, that beautiful lady right there, she's the welcoming crew for today, apparently. I've got the beef cattle herd out here in front of me, and I'm sitting down with these guys today in the pasture. But there are some seasonal changes that take place when you're managing a beef cattle herd, and especially when you're doing it regeneratively. Not every day looks the same. Not every year definitely looks the same. Matter of fact, this time of year, you can see I've got green grass. Matter of fact, I'll show you. You can actually see this grass has got some length on it. It's not grazed down at all, which means that we've still got an active growing season, which for mid-November is pretty atypical. But here's the real point behind this when looking at these cows this time of year is that we're adapting to the situation, to the scenario, right? So everything about the operation here is adaptive. We have to come out each day. We have to look at what the surroundings are, what the setting is, and look at the context of how that's going to play into the weather, at least for the foreseeable future as far as we can see that forecast. So right now, as we're looking at these guys, and I'll just kind of show you this. These guys are just walking up to me here as I'm having this conversation with you. But the thing about these animals is we move these animals daily, and that's the same scenario whether it's in the middle of the summer or whether it's in the depths of winter. But what that move looks like is going to vary. In the active growing season, where these animals always have grass coming back, assuming that we have good rainfall to be able to continue to allow that growth to occur, then we're going to move them really aggressively. We may even move them a couple of times a day, keep them pretty tight. But as you'll notice here, these guys aren't overly tight. They're kind of bunched up around me here right now because they're just curious about what I'm up to, about this conversation we're having. But we've given them a lot more area to graze today with this daily move. And the reason that we're doing that is we want them to be selective this time of year. So normally we don't give them the opportunity to be selective. We want them to eat everything that's in front of them and to be able to whether that's a weed, whether that's a grass, whether that's a legume, we want them to graze all of that material that's in front of them because that's a diversity of things that are going through their digestive system. It's going to give them a better array of nutrients and active components that they're pulling from the plant. And ultimately, we know now that that translates into what is delivered in regards to the nutritional quality in the meat. So that's what it looks like in the summer. But here we are mid-November right now, and it's a bit of a different conversation. This time of year, we want them to be selective. We want them to be able to eat the most nutritious grass. Some of the grass has started to fall back and doesn't have the same quality to it. And so we want them to be selective and get the highest quality possible that they can this time of year. So the point being on all this is that we have to make some decisions. We have to really look at these seasonal changes and be attentive to the herd, be attentive to how these seasonal changes affect them. One of the things that we're going to be doing here in the next few days is we're going to be taking the calves, this year's calves, off of the mamas. That varies from when we do that. Again, I said we're in mid-November. I've done that as early as the first part of October. And it really comes down to how much ability those mama cows have to be able to sustain their condition with carrying those calves. And so now I can see, looking at the weather, we're starting to get some cooler nights. It looks like we're going to get some real cool nights here in the near future. And so if that ends up resulting in a frost and it knocks our grass back, then we're going to see the grass quality drop off pretty fast. And that means that nutrition is not going to be as high, and those calves don't need to be on those moms and potentially risking pulling those moms down. The other side of that is we look at the calves. You can see these calves. I've got them right here in front of me. Those three right there are from this year's calf crop. and those guys look good. They're solid. There is another one right here that is from this year's calf crop, and these are all solid, nice looking little calves. So pulling them off their mom is not going to set them back. They're not really nursing their mom that much at all anyway right now, and so it should be a good move. So, you know, when you look at regenerative, sustainable practices, there's a lot of aspects that have to be considered. And this is, remember guys, this is just one aspect of what takes place here at Harvest Hills Ranch, right? We've still got the poultry operation, we've still got the egg layers. It's all about the integration of these together at the end of the day. But this is just what we have to think about with a beef cattle herd. And truly, I'm just giving you a snippet of it because I haven't even said anything to you in regards to maybe when we start feeding hay. Do we need additional hay in certain paddocks that we have compared to others? This paddock that I'm in right now, again, like I told you, you can look behind me back there and there's a lot of rich grass for these guys to graze on. So we don't need to be thinking about any type of supplementation for them here. But if they get into a paddock or an area that hasn't grown back quite as well, then we would start to think about maybe adding and supplementing in a little hay, even with some green grass on the ground, just to make sure that we meet their forage requirements, their dry matter requirements, which, again, it's just variable. So yeah, seasonal changes. It's all about adaptation here. Every year looks different, as I alluded to, and so this year has been really interesting. In that we had a lot of rain through the summer. The early part of the fall has gotten really dry, but we've had some rain recently that certainly allowed things to bounce back. And because I've got the herd numbers down a little bit, we processed out quite a few cows, probably processed out a quarter of our cows here about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And that changes our management practices as well. So that's going to also dictate how aggressively we're going to move across these pastures. So, you know, when you look at all this, kind of some last thoughts here, this is a thinking man's game. You can't just put these cows out here and just let them graze. You got to actually look at these cows, monitor these cows, and give some forethought to what the days ahead are going to look like, and how that's going to influence what the condition of that animal is going to be, not just next week, but in the months ahead, and even when we start rolling back around into the spring. So all just things to think about. So listen, I appreciate your interest in this and learning and just seeing what some of these regenerative and sustainable practices look like in motion. Being out here on a nice day, getting to see the herd behind me and getting to be this close to the herd. They were at the other end of this paddock when I started this video, and I had a funny feeling if I sat down in the pasture, they'd come down here and just meander around me, and that's exactly what they've done. So that's a really cool feeling. Lets me know we've got a good relationship with these animals, and they trust in us as their handlers and their caretakers. So I'll leave it on that note, guys. So take care, and we'll see you on the next one.